Better Call Saul has ended. The Breaking Bad verse has come to an end. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, what did you think about the series finale of Better Call Saul? This is a spoiler review, so feel free to spoil away down below in the comment section. And if you haven't watched the finale yet, go watch the show, go watch the finale, then come over here and join the conversation. And if you aren't aware, over on my second channel, I have been reviewing each of the seasons of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad in order to give my full thoughts on the entire Breaking Bad universe. You can check that out in this playlist up here, and let's get started. And I felt that this was a low-key but satisfying conclusion to the series. Better Call Saul was always in a tricky position when it came to landing the ship because it's 95% prequel to Breaking Bad and then 5% epilogue. And I haven't been crazy about the way that they decided to blend that in with, in particular, as soon as they did the time jump and then they did those 2 episodes where they did Slippin' Jimmy 3.0 with Gene doing new scams, I don't feel that was the right way to do that. And it felt like there was just such a shift in tone, pacing, and all of a sudden we're doing something we've done before. We're seeing Jimmy do the same thing he's done before many, many times, just with supporting characters we're not as interested in. And I wish they would have taken that content and like maybe spread it out over the season rather than doing that as 2 straight episodes of setting that information, because I just felt like that was just too slow, too change of a pace, and too much of starting something new as we're closing things out. All that said, the last 2 episodes, last week's episode and this one, I think they gave up me the closure that I wanted, what I was actually looking for in the Gene storyline, in the final little epilogue for really Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, of what was Kim's perspective on what Saul Goodman turned into, and what's the ultimate choice that Jimmy will make. Will Jimmy ever be able to accept responsibility for what he's done and stop trying to sleaze his way out of it? Stop trying to talk his way out of it. Stop trying to maneuver his way out of it. Will he finally own what he did? Take responsibility. And so one of the reasons that they did in this last few episodes, they have Gene to be Slippin' Jimmy again, to once again show he goes back to his old ways. He hasn't learned. He hasn't changed. And so I get what they were doing there. I get why they did that. And it's very important to set up the choice that he finally makes in the finale. I get it. I just wish they'd done that information. They could have done that differently and not taken so much time at the end on more schemes, more cons. I just don't think that was the right way to go about it. But it sets up this situation to where Jimmy is still trying to talk his way out of it all the way into the final episode. And he's caught. And he's still using his brilliant mind trying to maneuver everything. And they have this scene where he sits down and they have Marie come in, who's the person that like no one was requesting to show up in Better Call Saul. No one was like, I can't wait for Marie's cameo. And as soon as you see her in a room, you're like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Who would show up and just who's the person that she could go after? Oh, this makes so much sense. And as a character that in seasons like 1 through 3 of Breaking Bad, I hated, what they did in seasons 4 and 5, where they kind of put her, all of a sudden, she's the person that can be the voice of morality to Jimmy in this moment, and like goes off on him. And it's like, yeah, that's right. Everything she's saying is right. And like this Marie, this character was so unlikable when she was first introduced. All of a sudden, it's refreshing to see her show up. And it's like the cameo I never knew that I wanted, that was so satisfying to see and made sense. And of all the kind of cameos they did, like that one felt the least forced and made the most sense to me than kind of doing flashbacks of Walt and Jesse. Like, I get why they did it. I know why we wanted to see all that, but this one like felt like it really fit and made sense. But we're in that scene and Jimmy is so good as a lawyer, so sleazy as a con man, and can combine the law, the brilliant mind that he shares with Chuck with the sleaziness of a con man, and talks his way down to just 7 years. And you have that moment where like, oh man, is like that where this is going? Like, is Jimmy just gonna like sleaze his way out of this? Until he learns that Kim, a month ago, came in and confessed to Howard. The thing that Jimmy, like he just only feels guilt over that. There's a lot of things where you can like compartmentalize, but like he knows like what happened with Howard, like that Howard did not deserve what happened there. Like he knows that and just hasn't owned up to it in all this time. And that Kim does the right thing, pulls the Jimmy back out. And that's the thing that's been when they had that tragic final moment in the original timeline where they break up and then it just does a time jump to him as Saul Goodman. And it's like this depressing scene of Jimmy is gone, Saul Goodman is taken over, and it just makes every appearance of Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad so tragic that Jimmy, this sweet but highly misguided person, is gone and taken over just by this persona. And then you get to this episode and Kim doing the right thing. And Kim maybe potentially going to get in a lot of trouble because she did that. Sparks the good in Jimmy back to life. And all leading kind of that final sequence where you just don't know what's about to happen because he confesses to stuff to get Kim to show up. And then he starts to go up to the mic to say something, and he starts reciting what he said before. And you're like, oh man, like, oh, this is like the sleaziest of Jimmy, just like reciting this line that he did to talk his way down to the judge to try and manipulate the judge. And he gets to a point in it, which is the moment where it's like, I was forced by Walter White, and he changes it and he starts just confessing. And you realize like his final choice, and that's the beauty of character arcs, like the choices that they make, are they consistent with the character, and will it ultimately feel satisfying with where they go with it? You get to that moment and Jimmy finally chooses to do the right thing. So you start to see the difference between what the journey of Walter White versus Jimmy McGill. Jimmy starts his show trying to do the right thing. And a series of things keep happening that push him to make wrong choices that lead him to be the worst version of himself. That's what we saw in Breaking Bad. But he was trying to do the right thing. That's where the show starts. So what's the right place for it to end? Him choosing to do the right thing. Whereas with Walter White, the whole first season is him, something terrible happens and he chooses the wrong answers. He chooses not to get help from the people that offer to pay because his ego won't allow him, because he's so angry at these people. He's so bitter about his life that he chooses to cook crystal meth rather than ask for help and charity. Like, that was his journey from the beginning. Him, obviously, Breaking Bad. Choosing wrong all along the way. And every time where he has a chance to stop, he keeps going the wrong path and never really gets any redemption. The only thing of redemption that Walter White gets is that he chooses to protect Jesse and he gets revenge, but none of this is redemption. There's just a minor amount of like, he owns up to it. I'm a bad person. I did this for bad motivations. Now I'm going to go kill everybody that took my money. Not redemption. Whereas with Jimmy, it was always about like, can he break the cycle? Can he stop being Slippin' Jimmy? You get to the finale, and I think I was talking with my wife just briefly, but before I hit record on this, I mean, like, was literally watch the episode, talk with her for a few minutes, and then hit record. And this is my raw thoughts on all of this, as you can probably tell. Where she was talking about the fact of like, part of what makes the show Better Call Saul so sad is that Jimmy actually is brilliant. He does have a good heart. Moral compass isn't so great, but he's actually extremely intelligent. He has the same mind that Chuck has. He just cuts corners. He likes to do it his way. He plays by his own rules. But he goes through the entire show with people constantly looking down on him. Chuck being the ultimate example of it. But one thing my wife was talking about is the scene with Walter, set during, I guess, the next to last episode of Breaking Bad, where they're in the vacuum guy's basement. And the whole thing, Jimmy's being Jimmy, trying to talk to him and be friendly and like talk him up. And everything that Walter says to him is looking down on him. Like, Jimmy's like, hey, man, if you could have changed that, I could have been your lawyer. We could have done this. Walter just goes like, you're the last person I would have called. And then it gets to the end of it, and Jimmy tells him the story about this con he did that hurt his knee. And Walter just goes, so you've always been like this? Just looking down on him, and all he sees is the doofus. Can't see any of the potential, the actual intelligence. And as we get to the end, my wife goes like, that's so frustrating about this show. And what's the brilliance of it is that like the audience knows how good Jimmy can be and how smart he can be. Kim knows how smart he is and how good he can be. But almost everyone else just sees the clown. Everyone else just sees his flaws. And it's kind of the tragedy of him that just kind of has to accept that. And so you get to the final little bit here, and he had just done this brilliant move where he talked him down to 7 years. And then in order, both inspired by Kim to protect Kim, and so Kim can see him choosing to do the right thing, he burns it all down. Just burns it to the ground, confesses to all this stuff, and ends up, he's going to be in jail for probably the rest of his life, knowing exactly what he was doing as he did that. And you kind of see it and you go, yeah, that was his last hurrah. His last little moment is Saul Goodman. He does it, sits down, and immediately says, I'm Jimmy McGill. And he puts the character aside. Something so satisfying about that's the person that if you watch the show, it starts off this idea of seeing the charismatic, goofy lawyer from Breaking Bad. But then when you meet Jimmy, he's such a more endearing, likable character than a Walter White was. And you're rooting for him constantly to do the right thing, and he keeps making the wrong choices. And finally, in the finale, he does the right thing. That's satisfying. And there's even in him going to jail, choosing to do the right thing, that felt like that's the thing that is right for this character. Him getting away with it, like that doesn't feel like that's what you want. Him getting killed, certainly don't want to see Jimmy die. I was going into this episode afraid of that. But him choosing to do the right thing, that is satisfying. And the other thing that kind of came with that is that him in prison, he's way more free than he was working at Cinnabon. He's way happier in prison than he was in Cinnabon. Because when he's at Cinnabon, he was terrified every moment that he would be caught. He wasn't free at all. He didn't have any friends. He didn't have anyone he could talk to. He didn't have anyone he could be honest with. He really lost everything. And then when he's in prison, they're like driving there, and everyone thinks he's a celebrity. Like they love him. And even a little moment where he's working in the kitchen, doing the same thing that he was doing at the Cinnabon. Like even the way they cut it was like, okay, we're doing Cinnabon? Oh, no, he's just working in the kitchen here. Okay, that makes sense. And there's this little moment where someone's like, I got you, Jimmy. Because he has friends again. He has a life again. And even just like how deeply true that is in real life, that the truth will set you free. That when you're living in secrets, trying to hide things, how damaging that is, and how what you think is freedom sometimes is not freedom at all. And being stuck at the Cinnabon, afraid of getting caught, is not freedom. And in the case of Jimmy, being in prison, while being locked up, he's way more free than he was as Gene Takovec. Something about that that's just like profound. And once again, satisfying. That in a very weird sense, Jimmy does get a happy ending. And the final piece to that is that his lawyer shows up And no surprise, it was Kim. And kind of wanted, like, I going into the episode, I wanted to have more of a stated conversation between them, like looking like, what does Kim really think about it? What does Kim really think? What does Kim think? What can she state it? But you think, you don't really need to ask, like, you don't need Kim to state what she thinks about this. We spent a lot of time with her. It's pretty easy to guess what she thinks about a lot of this stuff. And you don't need that. And so you have this little bit, and all it is their friendship is restored. And you think the best friend he ever had, his wife, they of course loved each other, had so much fun together, but they lost that because of how toxic they were. Now, in some sense, the friendship is restored. And the whole show was about their relationship in many regards. And it's back. So you have a show that's like, the finale is all about the lead character going to jail, and somehow it plays like a happy ending. That's cool. And it's strange that you can have something that he goes to jail, feels like it should be a downer, plays like a happy ending, and it also fits even in this very dark Breaking Bad verse where people normally have bad things happen to them. And I think that's fitting of Jimmy. I think it makes sense that Jimmy would have this very odd happy ending. It fits him. So all that to say, is low key. It's not flashy like Breaking Bad. It's not, doesn't do anything like that. It's not trying to be that. And the show is never like that. It doesn't have a bunch of like, wow moments. But it has the right moments that fit the journey that he's been on. And the themes of like, what were they really doing with Jimmy all the way from the beginning? And you're watching kind of the downfall of Jimmy. And then here you see the redemption of him. So I thought that worked. Yeah, I really do wish they'd reworked how they did these last 4 episodes, and the 2 that I'm not crazy about, maybe spread that information about a little bit longer, maybe stretch out the last 2 episodes to be 3 episodes. I think there's just some version of it that I think I would have been a lot happier with, or didn't feel like it slowed to a crawl for 2 episodes. Like, what's going on here? Because even once we know like where the show was going, like, oh, okay, like we need to set up. Okay, I still don't like. Those are the 2, maybe like 2 of my least favorite episodes of the entire series, and then the last 2 episodes. Fitting epilogue to this whole journey. And so, anyway, in general, that's kind of my thoughts on how they closed out the show. Last 2 episodes, I think, landed the ship in a way that went, yeah, that's good. That's satisfying. It fits the show, fits the character. It doesn't feel like one of the great, like, memorable finales of all time. But with so many shows that just completely screw up in the finale, that's not what this is. This is a satisfying into a journey, but it does feel like an epilogue to more so than I don't know. It's tough to say because once again, it's like a prequel show that's also ends after everything. So it's a weird way to even describe it, but it's like a satisfying little epilogue closeout to the journey of Jimmy. So. Got a little bit rambly, but that's what happens when you hit record right after watching something. Let me know what you thought down below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? It is one of the great finales of all time. Has the Breaking Bad verse solidified itself as 2 of the best written shows of all time? I would say that, even with some of my criticisms of season 6, I would say that. Or are you saying like, man, did it lose it? Let me know your thoughts down below, and I will have more Breaking Bad content on this channel as well as my other channel over the next few days. I'll rank all the seasons of both shows with El Camino on this channel, and then over on the other channel I have my reviews of the different seasons, so check all that fun stuff out somewhere over here. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.